Cancona, Céadúil Chiefs, Cogadis Golden and Harry Niwa. I want to welcome indeed and congratulate Minister McHugh and thank him for his time as Government Chief Whip. And I work with him in the Business Committee, always helpful and cordial and with a difference of opinion, but always work well together. Welcome a Ben Kayla and Ocht Freshen. And indeed the other ministers, Deputy Kenny back as the Minister of State, I want to welcome them as well. And indeed Sean Kine, wish him well, and Minister Bruton and your new role. And you have Tipperary connections, Minister Bruton, and we thought you might look after us better as regards the desk schools in Tipperary town. You failed spectacularly, but look, you're safe bare hands. That's why the Taoiseach put you in there, I think. But best of luck to you anyway. I do see a notable absence of Minister Ross and some colleagues from the Independent Alliance. I know that Minister Hannigan has arrived, and it just shows something about the dysfunction. Penny, you're very quiet. You don't see her anymore. When you were this side, you were making a lot of noise. And a lot to say. At the outset, I want to say, however, that it's the height of political brass neck for the Taoiseach to come into this House and talk about bringing stability to government in order for us to move forward with the National Broadband Plan. You know nothing about the plan, Taoiseach. You're going to make it a personal wraparound now, like the boiler around the hot stoves, and the wrap around the in the hot press, as if it's so intimate to you. You know nothing about rural Ireland, and care less. Hardly a week or a month has gone by without some report of internal fighting within this shambolic government, especially with reference to the relationship between the Independent Alliance ministers and their so-called Fine Gael colleagues. If the Taoiseach was so interested in maintaining stability in order to deliver the endless promises his government has made, why have these reports been so consistent of the disquiet? And I want to say about my colleague here, who's here a lot longer than I am, from Tipperary, and elected by the people of Tipperary, normally at the head of the poll, to Deputies Barry and others who want to bring down his demise. When they're elected as long as him, and they know what kind of a vote he knows what kind of a vote his town corner, I think, without being advised. So he's elected by the people of Tipperary. I think that's their right to do so. I can't hear what you said now, but anyway, it's all the one. It's all the one. It appears you look after Limerick. No, mine doesn't Tipperary. It appears to me that, and to many others, as well as that the Taoiseach treats his so-called political partners with contempt, which in turn makes it only a matter of political luck that the government has not already collapsed, and with any prospect of delivering the National Broadband Plan. Minister Naughton, as I said, has been criticised, and I want to compliment him as a diligent, hard-working TD and indeed Minister. And indeed, our colleagues in the Independent Alliance can vouch for this. He's the one Minister that kept in touch with us and briefed us regularly, and I want to thank him and his staff for that and wish him well as well. And as I said, he did his best to bring the broadband process, and if anything, I suppose he was too averse and anxious to get something delivered, because he understands rural Ireland and cares for it deeply. And I think he summed it up very well last week when he said that the Taoiseach was more interested in opinion polls rather than telegraph polls, and more interested in optics rather than fibre optics. And that's the problem with this government since the inception in your 5 million spin as well, Taoiseach. In October 2016, this government's dysfunctional nature was full display when the row over the judicial appointments broke out between Fine Gael and the Independent Alliance, or indeed Minister Ross. Then in October 17, yet another row between the parties over the freezing assets of senior bankers involved in the Tracker mortgage scandal. And we know who lost that one. The unfortunate people that are suffering with the mortgage, the Independent Alliance didn't win it. Only last month we had yet another example of the instability when reports emerged that Fine Gael ministers privately blaming the Independent Alliance for being responsible for a major part of the health budget overspent. Who will Minister Harris blame next? He's no bother fine 12 million for the termination of pregnancy bill, all right. No problem with that, but you'll wait for everything else. What all this points towards is that it is merely a chance that we have so far avoided a political crisis. Despite the changes made today, this government is on its knees. To say goodbye to it would be no great sorrow if it did not mean the end of the broadband plan, but you don't care about broadband, you don't care about ordinary people, you only care about the bankers and the big people. You proved that with your budget recently, a missed opportunity to tax the fat cats, to tax AIB now in a huge profit, to tax the new landlords in Tipperary who are wreaking havoc on us all, and to have any meaningful impact or results, and to care about the ordinary people. So you can move the deck chairs, as Deputy Brown said, but the Titanic is well rattled and well shook, and you're only sticking together for one reason, and one reason only, and that includes the opposition party here and the other other opposition parties to get this dastardly piece of legislation that you call the Termination of Pregnancy Act together. A purely regressive piece of legislation that goes far beyond anything we have in England or any place else and is shameful. And that's the glue that's keeping me together. Nothing else.